This is the Troll Patrol. Live with Justin FREAKIN.
Welcome to the Troll Patrol. Live. It's a freaking Monday. No, I have not been canceled as some of you might have thought based on my absence last night and Thursday night. Thursday was the weather event here in my area. Didn't really do anything. It was supposed to thunderstorm. Looked ominous all fucking day. Then didn't really get anything. I took the opportunity to play video games and not to talk about the U.S. government and their raid in Syria that killed civilians. We're going to talk about that tonight. Sunday night, I just fell asleep on the couch. I had went to Sparkles on Sunday afternoon, hung out with her mom, and we had a charcuterie board. Whatever the fuck her coochie board. I ate some of Sparkles' coochie board. Came home, passed out on the couch. Also avoiding talking about the United States. Their raid in Syria killed women and children. And also the body cam footage of the cops killed Amir Locke in Minnesota. Boy, I've not wanted to talk about those things. We're going to talk about them tonight, plus so much more. We're going to check in with the Olympics. Apparently, athletes are not very happy with the way they are being treated by China. Plus, we're going to hear some saber rattling from Mitch McConnell and your favorite congressman, as well as mine, Dan Crenshaw. Their thoughts about China. Tennessee pastor held a book burning. We've got video from it, plus somebody crashed his little book burning. Spoiler alert, it was Pastor Greg Locke, if you didn't figure that out already. Constantly doing things to try to keep his name in the news. The federal hate crime trial for the McMichaels. Last time I was with you guys, we were talking about how two McMichaels had pled guilty. They've withdrawn their guilty pleas. They're now going to be heading to trial. I believe jury selection began today. Check in on that. Looks like the Omicron wave has peaked here in the United States. Cases are way down, despite still being at an alarmingly high count, as well as the number of children still sick in the hospital, still being alarmingly high. While several states are pulling back their restrictions, this comes amid a gigantic trucker convoy in Canada protesting restrictions. We're going to check in on the convoy, see what they've been up to. Being shitty and harassing a homeless shelter is what they've been up to. The state of emergency has been declared in Ottawa. GoFundMe has pulled the account of the trucker convoy. Sweet home Alabama. I still wake up every morning and wonder how the fuck I got here. 19% of users have either deleted Spotify or say they plan to delete Spotify. I believe this report came out before the whole N-word controversy. You can see my meme up on the screen right now. Neil Young fans trying to delete Spotify. Fortunately, if we're going to talk about Joe Rogan using the N-word, we also have to talk about my use of the N-word. I can't criticize Joe Rogan and not address my own past use of the word. So that's gonna be fun. Yes, cancel Justin Freakin. But I haven't done a troll patrol since last Wednesday, so perhaps some of you were under the false impression that I had indeed been canceled. I hate to disappoint you. But let's start off tonight with we're doing the international news. We're gonna go to Syria. Barrage of attacks, civilians killed in U.S. raid in Syria. 6 children and 4 women among the 13 people killed as U.S. Special Operations Forces launch a raid in the Idlib province, according to first responders. We are reading from Al Jazeera. At least 13 people, including 6 children, have been killed because, let me tell you, U.S. media sources aren't reporting it like this. At least 13 people, including 6 children, have been killed during a United States Special Operations Forces raid in Syria's rebel-held Idlib province, according to residents and first responders. The overnight raid targeted a building in Atmeh, a densely populated town in northwest Syria near the Turkish border. Now, this happened about 3 days ago, updated on February the 4th. This is where tens of thousands of people were displaced by the country's decade-long war. U.S. President Joe Biden said the raid targeted the leader of ISIL, Abu Abraham al-Hashimi al-Qurshi. This has been like the, 200th leader of ISIL or ISIS. Thanks to the skill and bravery of our armed forces, we have taken off the battlefield. I'm not even going to try to say it again. The leader of ISIS. All Americans have returned safely from the operation, Biden said in a statement on Thursday. Thank God all the U.S. forces have returned safely. Abu Fahid Al-Humzi, a displaced Syrian who lives a block away from the site of the attack, told Al Jazeera that his family was awoken in the early hours. We woke up at 1 a.m. to the sound of helicopters, and then at around 3 a.m., we heard a barrage of attacks. Saw a house that was targeted and damaged roads, but we still have no idea what was going on. Residents said the helicopters were hovering over the building for more than 2 hours before attacking it. U.S. Special Forces then carried out a landing operation and stormed the house. Mahmoud Kahani lives nearby, said the U.S. forces had surrounded the targeted building and used loudspeakers to call on its residents to leave the area. Operation ended, we went to the area and saw a woman who apparently detonated an explosive vest. Inside the building, we saw some bodies, including that of a man and a child, he told Al Jazeera. The Syrian Civil Defense volunteer rescue group operating in rebel-held parts of Syria that is also known as White Helmets said in a statement at least 13 people were killed, including 4 women. Activists and residents quoted by news agencies said fighters in the area clashed with U.S. forces. Pentagon did not give any details about the raid, said the mission was successful. U.S. Special Operations Forces, under the control of U.S. Central Command, conducted a counterterrorism mission in northwest Syria. This is according to Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby. There were no U.S. casualties. More information will be provided as it becomes available. Warlord saying a 100% non-civilian casualty rate, because there was only ever terrorists killed in U.S. strikes. I believe the casualty rate is well above 80% in the last 20 years. For the civilian casualty rate in U.S. conflicts over the last 20 years have been around over 80%. Which means the vast majority of people that we kill overseas are civilians. I mean, we kill innocent civilians here in the U.S. What the fuck would make the rest of the world any different? We're going to get into Amir Locke here in just a little. Stick with the international news. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
This year's Winter Olympics are
taking aim at the Beijing Olympics
on the home turf of the Chinese Communist Party. Of course, Americans are rooting hard for our outstanding Team USA athletes. But this year,
I have no clue. I don't watch a fucking... The Olympics is nothing but a collection of sports that no one would pay to watch individually. Fight me. Fight me on it. I have no clue what's going on in the Olympics. Are you winning, son? Is the U.S. doing well? I said, doesn't Russia usually do well in the Winter Olympics because they're, you know, more prepared for winter sports? We're going to talk a lot about the Olympics tonight, but it has nothing to do with the actual sporting event.
This year's setting has also trained spotlights worldwide on the abuse and repression the CCP inflicts on its own people. And it's inspired.
Here's the thing. I saw somebody say, well, you could get locked up if you say that kind of stuff in China. Holy shit. Do you know which country locks up more citizens than any other country on the planet? It is the United States. We have a third of the population. We lock up more people than China does. Talk about getting locked up in a country.
To inflict on much of the world. Unfortunately, this has also occasioned some instances of jaw-dropping tone deafness and gullibility from American voices. I noted on this floor several years ago that as China's modernized its economy, too many wealthy and powerful American actors have seemed willing to help whitewash the CCP's many abuses, or at least turn a blind eye.
Mitch McConnell is married to a Chinese woman whose father owns a shipping company in China. Talking about wealthy Americans turning a blind eye. What the fuck, Mitch McConnell?
Hollywood self-censoring our own American films to satisfy President Xi and his cronies is just one example. Well, last week, one American broadcaster seemed to amplify the CCP's propaganda goal when they included a member of the oppressed Uyghur minority in the opening ceremonies. This broadcaster called the CCP's obvious propaganda stunt an in-your-face response to those Western nations, including the U.S., who have called this Chinese treatment of that group genocide. President Xi couldn't have scripted it better. Also last week, a faculty member at a Big Ten university went on TV and compared China's secret police to American police officers and China's tyranny.
No. They could not possibly kill as many innocent civilians as America's police officers. Sorry.
To America's voting laws. Here was the quote: "Who are we to criticize China's human rights record when we have ongoing attacks by the agents of the state against unarmed citizens? And we've got assaults on the voting rights of people of color."
Or legally armed citizens, as we're getting ready to see here later on in the show.
Beyond absurd. The truth is, the CCP has turned Xinjiang province into a giant oppression factory where they enslave, sterilize, and commit genocide against the Muslim minority. The truth is, the CCP has systematically worn down human rights and democracy in Hong Kong and jailed Hong Kongers for speaking up. The truth is, the CCP is an aggressive, irresponsible presence in the Pacific region and well beyond. America's national security and economic competition with the CCP is a defining challenge for our country. And not just us, but for all our friends and partners around the world, anyone who values an international order built on freedom and self-determination instead of their opposites. Last year, the Senate took some bipartisan steps to strengthen.
I think this is one of those things where we need to take a page out of Jordan Peterson's book and clean our own room first.
The Competition Act was not on any senators or any committees or either party's idea of a perfect bill, but this delicate compromise product made headway on issues from critical supply chains to counterespionage to intellectual property. And the Senate passed the bill last June.
Is that the proper way to refer to them as Hong Kongers?
Done nothing for 8 months. Nothing from House Democrats from last June until just last week.
I've never heard it used like citizens of Hong Kong seems.
Careful compromise. House Democrats slapped together a partisan bill stuffed with poison
or appropriate.
pills and the kinds of things they tried to put in their reckless taxing and spending spree that failed at the end of last year. They didn't even bother to try working with House Republicans. The whole exercise was completely unserious.
Why would they try to work with House Republicans? You fuckers are unserious.
Nearly as many times as it mentions the word China. It pours billions into the UN Green Climate Fund so the U.S. can borrow money from China to give it to an international body, which can then give it to China. Their bill even goes out of its way to include provisions on...
Wait. He's saying that we would borrow money from China to put it in a UN fund to give it back to China. That doesn't make any sense. First of all, like, people are very confused about how much of our debt China actually owns. It's something like 10-11%. People think that when we print money, like, we're borrowing it from China, and that's just not true. Hong Kongers does indeed sound funny. Now, I don't doubt that there's some kind of shady accounting going on where there's American business interests wanting to send money to China and take some money off the top. But, like, the idea that we're borrowing money from China to give to the UN to give back to China, that's just stupid, Mitch. That's stupid.
Listen to this. Marijuana banking. China has been steadily building up its military and economic might, and the Democrats' answer is to help Americans get high? Drug overdoses on...
No. It's to allow dispensaries to be able to do business with banks. Something that they can't currently do because of federal law. God, Mitch McConnell is horrible.
Just became the leading cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45 across our entire country. Much of this poison pours into our country from, of course, China.
Hey, Mitch, do you know why people are resorting to fentanyl? You, who is the senator from Humira, whatever the fucking insurance company is that is headquartered in Louisville, fucking Kentucky, that you were like the #1 recipient of backing from. It was the U.S. medical system and the pharmaceutical industry that got Americans hooked on opioids in your state specifically. And that's one of the reasons why they're turning to a cheaper, more effective drug, fentanyl, now. Especially because we have clamped down on the amount of Lortabs, Oxycontins, and shit that doctors can prescribe. We locked up a bunch of doctors and made them fearful to actually prescribe to people that have addiction or legitimately have issues.
Is some more? And Democrats plan to combat this as more marijuana on the side? Needless to say, this is
Yes, more marijuana would indeed cut down on the opioid crisis.
So here's the bottom line. The bipartisan Senate USICA bill was itself a delicate compromise product. Any Democrats hoping to yank the bill to the far left or insert poison pills are badly, badly mistaken.
I like how they didn't cut his little cough out at the end. Let's see what the House has to say, shall we? My favorite congressman and yours is Representative Dan Crenshaw. And for those of you who may be new to the show, I haven't played a clip of Dan Crenshaw in a little while. I would give anything, everything I own, to piss in Dan Crenshaw's open eye hole. Just so you guys know.
It is now in order to consider amendment number 56, printed in Part D of House Report 117-241. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I have an amendment.
Gentlemen, and we use that term
The clerk will
loosely.
designate the amendment.
Amendment number 56, printed in Part D of House Report number 117-241, offered by Mr. Crenshaw of Texas.
Pursuant to House Resolution 900, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Crenshaw, and a member opposed each will control 5 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of Amendment 56, which I was proud to offer. Madam Speaker, it's no secret what the Republican Party thinks of the Chinese Communist Party and their attack on our global leadership and the threat they pose to our exceptional nation and the global order we established and maintained.
Our exceptional
The
nation.
COVID outbreak and cover-up, the treatment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang, or the repression in Hong Kong, the facts clearly establish that the CCP is unaccountable, unreliable, and untruthful.
Our exceptional nation. What are we? America first, China last. This was from Representative Elise Stefanik last week. First in what? COVID infections and deaths, gun violence, prison population, number of homeless people, bombs dropped in foreign countries, national debt of $30 trillion, number of idiotic politicians like Elise Stefanik and Representative Crenshaw.
While some in this chamber want to think of them as a partner, I cannot bring myself down to that level of naivete. Let's call them what they are. They're a competitor and they're a threat. That's why when I read this bill, I was shocked to see that Democrats are almost being complimentary when they refer to China and their emissions goals. They say China is likely, quote, likely to achieve its carbon emissions pledge to the Paris Agreement, and that their emissions will peak ahead of schedule in 2030, a full 15 years after they agreed to Paris. Some Democrats go on to highlight China's pledge to be carbon neutral by
Now, Crenshaw has been
2060.
trying to distance
phase
himself
down their
from
coal-fired
that wing of the
power
party, the
generation.
Gates
It
and
reads like a press release for the Chinese Communist
Marjorie
Party
Taylor
published in the
Greene.
Global Times, or something tweeted by the bombastic foreign ministry spokesman. Not
No. You're referring to that little girl that was questioning his faith. Oh shit, yeah, we played that clip last week. That was fun to watch. To watch a room of Crenshaw supporters boo him.
Worst of all, there's not even an attempt to fact check this information. Just take it as blind fact, despite coming from an autocratic communist regime. Trust but verify will not do here. With China, it should be do not trust until we verify and continue to verify. Madam Speaker, are we so naive that we take China's word at face value? I believe I speak for my fellow Republicans and probably a few of my friends on the other side of the aisle when I say
I trust China more than I
we
trust
have no
Dan
reason to
Crenshaw.
believe the communist leadership that has publicly stated that their goal is to best us in every technological field and establish global dominance. In fact, we already have evidence that they falsified emissions data before joining the Paris Agreement, but some still want to trust them? It doesn't take a classified intel report to call China's bluff. They have no intention of meeting these goals, but that won't stop them from telling us that they're on track. And if I had to guess, they'll say they're doing it even better than we are in reducing emissions, if for nothing more than their ongoing information warfare.
Just shows you shouldn't be
world stage.
praising the SEALs as
That is the
anything
purpose
other
of my
than
amendment. We need to have
craven
the State
assholes.
Department in consultation with the Department of Energy come in and give us the facts. This amendment requires an annual brief.
They actually have done better than us, as far as I understand it, with emissions and even worker treatment. They realize that happy workers are more productive. So they move from being this totalitarian system of slave labor. Now, I don't know exactly what's going on in the Xinjiang province with the Uyghurs. Supposedly there are slave labor camps there. But like as for the Chinese people, they have made leaps and bounds to improve working conditions because they've found that happy workers are better workers. Who would have thunk it?
Briefing regarding the progress and efforts of China to meet emissions goals. We need to know, is China telling the truth about how much they have reduced emissions? Are they building more coal-fired power plants? Have they successfully deployed carbon capture technologies the way we have? These are answers we need for the United States to compete with China. Knowledge is power, and the quickest path to victory is understanding your adversary. Despite all the other problems scattered throughout this bill, I believe this amendment is a chance to at least do one thing right. This amendment is about accountability. This is about accuracy. And most importantly, this is about knowing the full capabilities of our largest and fiercest competitor. I urge my colleagues to support accountability, to support accuracy, to support truth, and to
I don't understand what we're
supporting this amendment.
competing against them.
The gentleman.
And first of all, like, they're beating our ass in capitalism. I don't understand what. It shouldn't be a competition with other nations working together for the betterment of all people, not competing against China. But apparently there are several athletes that are competing in the Beijing Olympics that are now speaking out the way they are being treated. Try everyday Olympic athletes slam the food, COVID tests, and conditions in Beijing quarantine hotels. My heart can't take it. Emotionally crushed Polish speed skater Natalia Malzikwa wrote in an Instagram post. I think I actually have video of this. Maybe somebody else. I'm not sure. I'm going to read the story from the USA Today. Got the video here from the New York Post.
Hi everybody. Some of you have read the good news that I was sent out of the isolation facility. We thought this meant I was allowed to return to the Olympic Village and will be treated maximum as a close contact. On the way to the village, we did not turn to the village, but the ambulance went to another facility where I am now. I am supposed, my NOC got surprised by this decision as well. I'm supposed to stay here for another 7 days with 2 PCRs a day and no contact with anybody else. I am allowed to slide.
So they are up to at least 45 cases.
We are not even sure I will ever be allowed to return to the village. And obviously this is very hard for me. So I ask you all to give me some time to consider my next steps, because I'm not sure I can handle 14 more days and the Olympic competition while being in this isolation. Thank you.
Now this is Kimmy Lemons, person that was quoted in the USA Today article. My heart can't take it. Emotionally crushed Polish speed skater Natalia Malzikwa wrote in an Instagram post, I'm very pale and I have huge black circles around my eyes. I want all this to end. I cry every day. It was according to Russian biathlete ballerina Vasnetsova. On the same platform, it's unreasonable, complained Dirk Schimmelfinging, the head of the German delegation, in an interview with the nation's media. All three were speaking out about the conditions they faced or observed in quarantine hotels in China used by athletes who test positive while at the 2022 Winter Olympics. They described inedible meals, little or no access to training equipment, and a confusing and at times seemingly illogical COVID-19 testing regime. Short track speed skater Maluzweka tested positive for coronavirus on January the 30th when she was ruled out of Saturday's qualifying race for the 500 meters, her strongest event. Maluzweka was unexpectedly released from isolation on the eve of the race, only to test positive a few hours before it started, and was immediately ushered back into quarantine. The next day, Sunday, the day after the qualifying event, she was released after testing negative again. A lot of people do not understand the situation. Positive and negative tests confirming isolation, suddenly positive test, later good results again. Maluzweka wrote in Polish in her Instagram post. She also posted on Twitter. It was translated into English by a Polish radio journalist named Matsua Legeza. I don't understand it either, she wrote. I don't believe in anything anymore. In no tests, no games. It's a big joke for me. Three-time U.S. Olympic bobsled medalist Elena Myers-Taylor also tested positive after arriving in Beijing and had to isolate, but has since been cleared to compete. Myers-Taylor told USA Today Sports she did everything she could in her tiny room to prepare for the first monobob heats that began February 13th. She did squats and lifted weights and sprinted from one end of the room to the other to mimic the start of the race. U.S. figure skating announced on Monday that Vincent Zoe, scheduled to skate the men's short program on Tuesday, tested positive on Sunday. It's now unclear whether he will be able to compete. The IOC says it's dealing with athletes' concerns. In a press briefing with reporters on Monday, the International Olympic Committee's sports director, Kit McConnell, said that the IOC has a support network in place to deal with athletes' concerns, both individually and collectively. Said the steps were being taken to address individual circumstances which are still challenging. The IOC had been having calls with athletes who are not satisfied with the quarantine conditions. However, McConnell also said that it was the Beijing Olympic Organizing Committee, not the IOC, that has responsibility for dialogue with the hotels where athletes and other games participants are staying. In a process of addressing these problems, said Shahan Yang, vice president of Beijing's organizing committee, in Monday's briefing, sitting next to McConnell. Not everyone is feeling the improvements yet. The coach of the Finland's men's ice hockey team on Sunday accused Beijing's organizers of not respecting Marco Antila's human rights. But Jolonia told media in a Zoom call that the 2004 NHL 9th round pick of the Chicago Blackhawks was not getting good food and was suffering with mental stress because of his isolation. Antilla had been confined in his room for 2 weeks after testing positive when he landed in Beijing. Tested positive for coronavirus 18 days prior to leaving for China and produced several negative tests before he left. But the more sensitive tests used by Chinese health authorities have produced positive tests. Aw, thank you, Chedan, for saying I suck. And I'm told I'm not bad at it either. We know he's fully healthy and ready to go, and that's why we think that China, for some reason, they won't respect his human rights. According to Jelena, still Schimmelfinnen, the German delegation head who told Germany's FAZ newspaper that Nordic combined star Eric Frenzel was being quarantined in unreasonable conditions and required a larger, more hygienically clean room and more regular food delivery, said organizers acted quickly after his complaints. Now the athletes have a satisfying framework of conditions. They have bigger rooms now, working Wi-Fi, an exercise bike in the room, so we have appropriate and satisfying conditions in a very difficult situation for the athletes. You hate trans people, you're a piece of shit. I hate you. Right-wingers are morons. Hey, thank you for outing yourself. Being a bigot. Fuck yourself, dude. Or dudette. I don't know. I don't want to misgender you. He's Allah, and he misspells Allah, by the way. God damn. Right-wingers are fucking stupid. Can I get an amen? To the one true God. Me, of course. Ping Shui emerges at Olympics, gives a controlled interview. Now, we went over her story a couple months back. She had accused Chinese officials of sexual assault and then was disappeared. Nothing to see here. Move on. That was the message that Chinese tennis player Ping Shui delivered Monday in a controlled interview in Beijing that touched on sexual assault allegations she made against a former high-ranking member of China's ruling Communist Party. Her answers, delivered in front of a Chinese Olympic official, left unanswered questions about her well-being and what exactly happened. Interview with French sports newspaper L'Equipe, and an announcement that International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach met Ping for dinner this weekend seemed aimed at allaying sustained international concerns about the three-time Olympian and former number one ranked tennis doubles player. Fears for Ping's safety have threatened to overshadow the Winter Olympics underway in Beijing. Ping told L'Equipe concerns were the result of an enormous misunderstanding. The format of the interview appeared to limit follow-ups about the allegations and their aftermath. L'Equipe said it submitted questions in advance, a precondition for the interview, but also got to ask others that were unplanned. A Chinese Olympic Committee official sat in on the discussion, translating Ping's comments from Chinese. That it also used an interpreter in Paris to ensure the accuracy of the comments that it published in French. Large parts of the hour-long interview, conducted Sunday in a Beijing hotel and organized through China's Olympic Committee with the IOC's help, focused on Ping's playing career. At age 36 and after multiple knee surgeries, Ping said she couldn't envision a return to tour-level professional tennis. She hasn't played on the women's tour since February of 2020. The newspaper published her comments verbatim, which it said was another precondition for the interview in question and answer form. Photos of Ping during the interview showed her wearing a red tracksuit top with China in Chinese characters on the front. L'Equipe asked Ping about sexual assault allegations that sparked the controversy in November. The allegations were quickly scrubbed from her verified account on a leading Chinese social media platform, Weibo. She subsequently dropped out of public view for a while. That led to "Where is Ping Shui?" questions online and from players and fans outside of China, in part because the country has a history of disappearing people who run afoul of its leaders. We are reading from the AP, by the way. Her lengthy post, Ping wrote that Zhang Gali, a former vice premier and member of the ruling Chinese Communist Party's all-powerful Politburo Standing Committee, had forced her to have sex despite repeated refusals. The post also said they had sex once 7 years ago and that she developed romantic feelings for him after Zhang had not commented on the accusation. I doubt you're Pakistani. Her lengthy post. Oh, I'm sorry, I already did that part. Originally, I buried all this in my heart, she wrote. Why would you even come find me again, take me to your house, and force me and you to have sexual relations? Interview with L'Equipe. Her first sit-down discussion with non-Chinese language media since the accusation. She walked back the original post. Sexual assault? I never said that anyone made me submit to sexual assault, the newspaper quoted her as saying. Post resulted in an enormous misunderstanding from the outside world. My wish is that the meaning of this post no longer be skewed. Asked by L'Equipe why the post disappeared from Ping's account, she said, I erased it. Why? Because I wanted to, she added. The obvious follow-up question of why she posted it in the first place wasn't asked. I don't give a shit. He's clearly stupid and a chud, so I do not care. Fuck themselves. You too, Keith's dad, you stupid fuck.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Keith's dad is an idiot. Speaking of idiots, on to Canada. Free speech issues rattling corporate America. GoFundMe is facing blowback for its decision that has ensnared companies way bigger in size. The new controversy engulfing the crowdfunding platform highlights an increasingly thorny issue for organizations in America: free speech. Tolerant left? Who in the fuck told you anybody on the left was tolerant? I do not tolerate bullshit or bigots or idiots. So much for the tolerant left. Don't construct a fucking straw man argument. Hey, Shadan, want to have a little chit chat? You're welcome to call in 917-830-4359, or you can hop in the Discord. Seem like you got something you want to say. If you'd like to give me a little ring, hop in the Discord. I'll let you say whatever the fuck you want. We believe in free speech around here. IQ tests are stupid, first of all, and incredibly flawed. And two, I don't think you have 145 IQ. But if you'd like to show off that big brain, come on, do it. I welcome it. Hey, you got the balls. Call in or Discord in. They really are in Pakistan, then we don't want any of those international charges. But the Discord will work just fine. If not, we'll go back to talking about the Canadian trucker convoy. Apparently, GoFundMe took down the campaign for the trucker convoy that is currently in Ottawa. Controversy engulfing the crowdfunding platform highlights an increasingly thorny issue for organizations in America: free speech. GoFundMe took down a campaign previously aimed at raising money for the anti-vaccination mandate protest in Canada. The move quickly became politicized, and the company has come under fire from a handful of Republican lawmakers now calling for an investigation. Donald Trump Jr. on Twitter also called for all Republican attorneys general to look into the decision, saying the company seems to have no problem funding BLM riots. I don't know if that is a typo on Axios's part or on Don Jr.'s part. Keith's dad, you are stupid. You are a stupid fuck. Why don't you talk to us about how you know what qualified immunity is? I asked Keith's dad how we should handle the issue of police brutality. He responded that we should end qualified immunity. Now, how does qualified immunity hold police accountable for murder? Keith's dad even had some condescending remarks towards me. Right now, police have immunity from crime while enforcing law. Why do I get the feeling you have no idea what I'm talking about? If a police officer murders someone, they are automatically granted immunity. That is not true. Qualified immunity applies to civil suits. His dad is an idiot that never knows what he is talking about. I mean, if you want to think that I got triggered just because, like, I'm tired of idiots trying to act like they know what they're talking about, and I guess you can call that being triggered. Raka 678900. Welcome. Thank you for being a freaking follower. I would just like you to admit one time that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because you seem to want those concessions from me. What's up, Professor? I'm trying to get Keith's dad to admit that he's an idiot. But it's never going to happen. You're going to keep trying to troll me and keep failing spectacularly. GoFundMe spokesperson pointed Axios to an earlier statement describing how the Freedom Convoy 2022 campaign violated its terms of service. Companies like Facebook and Google have long faced the brunt of criticism for how they handled speech and content on or related to their platforms. Now, almost every business, including smaller tech firms, will eventually need to reckon with these types of decisions. Separately, for example, the community behind a blockchain service fired its director of operations when offensive comments he made resurfaced. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek his most definitive stance on free speech over the weekend, telling employees Sunday that while he strongly condemns past racial slurs used by Joe Rogan, the platform won't cut ties with its most popular podcaster. Oh, God. We do control the prosecution. In many cases, we elect the prosecutor. We elect the representatives that make the laws. Keith's dad, you are an idiot. You have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Right-wingers are morons. We have just as much control over the use of qualified immunity as we have the laws governing cops. I have a proposal called the Higher Standard Act, where cops should face double whatever the mandatory minimum is for anything they are charged with. Now, that's a proposal. But you never want to give me any kind of a proposal. You never want to actually take a stand on anything. Yeah, removing qualified immunity sounds good. It does not solve the issue. I did not fail miserably, Keith's dad. My argument was that the cops create more crime than they ever solve. So here's the thing, Keith's dad. You're like, well, who is going to arrest people for murder? More people have died of COVID than have been murdered in this country since 1976. So if you can justify, and this is what spurred this on. Keith's dad said that, a few innocent people are going to die to protect freedom when we were talking about the Amir Locke case. That's the price you pay for freedom, that some innocent people are going to die. So that was his justification for draconian police action. But more people have died of COVID than have been murdered in this country since 1976. So I'm going to assume Keith's dad is behind severe lockdowns, strict mask mandates. Because if murder is a big enough problem to throw billions of dollars, the most funded part of any government is the police force. Throw billions of dollars at it. then I'm sure that Key's dad is going to agree with the most harsh COVID restrictions. The answer to your question is that not more. Not more. Police don't prevent crime. The idea that police prevent crime is just absurd. And I asked Keith's dad to tell me what the solve rate was for violent crimes in this country. And his response was, I don't care what it is. It's less than 50%, by the way. He said, I don't care what it is unless it's zero. The police are justified. So I would assume the same thing would apply to COVID. Police do not prevent crime. I would love to see data that shows me police prevent crime. No. Actually, according to the authors of Freakonomics, one of the driving factors that has driven down the crime rate in the last 40, 50 years has been abortion. The legalization of abortion has nothing to do with police action. That's my stance. Deterrence rationale is empirically false. Now, do we need some kind of a force to act on behalf of the courts? Sure. But beat cops are fucking useless. And Keith's dad is an idiot.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Yes. Freakonomics is a fantastic book. It's also a movie. If you don't have time to read the book, I do highly recommend watching the movie. But both are excellent. And I think there's actually a second book I need to read. No, Keith's dad, you were wrong. You were wrong. Cities that had progressive prosecutors, crime dropped drastically. You're an idiot that doesn't know what he's talking about. I dare you to post fucking data to back yourself up. You can't. And that's another thing. Fucking Keith's dad loves moving the goalposts to different things. Somehow we got on voter ID in the same fucking argument. And I presented to him the legal rationale from the Brennan Center for Justice about why they had to challenge voter ID on the basis of racial discrimination. Because that's against the law. He looks at it and says, ooh, it's a study. It wasn't a study. It was lawyers citing their legal rationale. It presented arguments from two studies, presented data from two studies. But then to just knock it down, he's like, oh, the study didn't have a big enough sample size or whatever the fuck he said. It wasn't a study. It was just an article from the Brennan Center for Justice. But that's the kind of disingenuous asshole Keith's dad is. And just once, everyone in the Discord was like, he answered your question. We would be better off without a police. Now, I have plenty of proposals, but you don't ever. It wasn't based on a dumb study, you stupid fuck. God damn. Holy shit. I just explained that it was lawyers explaining the rationale behind why they had to challenge voter ID based on racial discrimination. This dude's like, oh, the study was flawed. You're an idiot, dude. You're an idiot. He's been an analyst for 25 years. What he's been analyzing has been the inside of his rectum because his head is stuck so far up his fucking ass. I do highly encourage masturbating. Keep that prostate healthy. I'm getting up there in age, got to work it out. Let's talk about the convoy. Canadians aren't actually on the brink of civil war. This is coming to us from Slate. On Sunday, the mayor of Ottawa, Ontario, Jim Watson, declared a state of emergency as an estimated 5,000 people and 1,000 trucks joined the ongoing trucker protest over the country's COVID-19 protocols. I don't know where they got the 1,000 number. When the convoy made its way through Kingston, the Kingston police said they counted about 200. We're in the midst of a serious emergency, Watson said, the most serious emergency our city has ever faced. This week, the Freedom Convoy begins its 11th day in the Canadian capital, honking loud truck horns all night, passing locals, and urinating on a national war memorial while setting up bouncy castles and hot tubs. Local residents, protesters, and authorities have described the truckers' descent on the capital as an occupation. While the protest started as a movement of truckers who objected to the cross-border Canadian-U.S. vaccination or quarantine mandate, it has sprawled into a protest of all COVID orders, lockdowns, and mitigation protocols. As of today, a major shopping mall, Ottawa City Hall, two public library branches, and two COVID-19 vaccination clinics remain closed due to road closures and harassment. Local police issued more arrests on Sunday and began to work to halt fuel supplies from being transferred to the truckers as protests and counter-protests have sprung up in Toronto, Edmonton, Vancouver, and cities across the country that has an almost 80% vaccination rate. Meanwhile, 90% of Canadian truckers are vaccinated. This is according to the Canadian Trucking Alliance, who, by the way, has disavowed the Freedom Convoy protest. The Union of Canadian Truckers is not on board. Comparisons to January 6, 2021 are inevitable, and it's plain that much of the support is coming from the U.S. Crowdfunding is disproportionately coming from American donors and information spread by far-right influencers. Republican lawmakers promised to investigate GoFundMe for removing an account that had raised $9 million in support of the truckers. Ted Cruz suggested on Twitter that unvaxxed truckers should leave Vancouver with empty shelves, where President Donald Trump unsurprisingly tweeted support, saying the drivers are peacefully protesting the harsh policies of far-left lunatic Justin Trudeau. Far-left lunatic Justin Trudeau. Absolutely nonsense that Trudeau is far left. Jesus Christ. It's just about getting people riled up. You can make the dumbest people among us scared and fearful, and it will make you money. Banners on display at the demonstration have included Confederate and Nazi flags because of course it has. Make Canada great again. Fuck Trudeau or Trump 2024. Notably, one of the demands of the protesters is a dissolution of the current government. Canadian novelist and journalist Stephen March recently published The Next Civil War Dispatches from the American Future, a deeply researched and widely chilling set of dispatches about how the next American Civil War could begin. A cautionary tale to Americans who insist that such a thing couldn't possibly happen in the United States. Robert Evans has a fantastic podcast called It Could Happen Here. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend anything Robert Evans does. The left apparently means right of center these days. That's exactly. And one of the things that has gotten me incredibly upset about the whole convoy is they harassed a homeless shelter. The kind of assholes we're dealing with here. An Ottawa homeless shelter says a protest from the Freedom Convoy harassed staff and volunteers Saturday, demanding food from their soup kitchen and one shelter client was allegedly assaulted. The convoy, billed as a protest against COVID-19 mandates, brought thousands of people to downtown Ottawa, while the bulk of the crowd remained on Parliament Hill and was largely peaceful. Earlier today, our staff and volunteers experienced harassment from convoy protesters seeking meals from our soup kitchen. According to Shepherds of Good Hope, individuals were given meals to defuse the conflict. Management was then informed of the issue and no further meals were given to protesters. Our soup kitchen is committed to providing meals to people experiencing and at risk of homelessness in Ottawa. This weekend's events have caused significant strain to our operations at an already difficult time. While here in the U.S., while right-wingers are still protesting lockdowns that haven't happened in a year and a half, two states are now moving to drop the last vestiges of COVID mitigation strategy. America's blue states are increasingly chasing normalcy, especially when it comes to face mask rules meant to slow the spread of COVID-19. We're not going to manage COVID to zero, tweeted Governor Phil Murphy. The New Jersey Democrat announced today that his state is unwinding school mask mandates that have been in place for the entire pandemic. We have to learn how to live with COVID as we move from a pandemic to an endemic phase of the virus. Now, the WHO is warning not to spike the ball just yet. The next wave of the virus isn't necessarily going to be less virulent than the Omicron variant. Murphy knows he has to sell this plan to a lot of nervous parents. He told he plans to watch the data from schools every day and is banking on his past willingness to react to data, but his top goal is to restore a sense of normalcy. California health officials said on Monday that the state will lift its indoor mask mandate after February 15th. California's peak during the Omicron surge, the state has experienced a 65% decrease in case rates, according to the California Department of Public Health in a statement. Now, that actually coincides with data we're getting nationwide. It looks like we are over the Omicron wave. U.S. cases have dropped 61% since the January peak. As the COVID-19 pandemic... I cannot get rid of this video. Fuck you, ABC. I don't want to hear your saber rattling about Ukraine. As the COVID-19 pandemic has swept the globe, more than 5.7 million people have died from the disease worldwide. I really can't. It's annoying the shit out of me. Including over 904,000 Americans, according to real-time data compiled by Johns Hopkins University Centers for Systems Science and Engineering. About 64.1% of the population in the United States is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. It's still an abysmal number. Cases among kids continue to drop, but are still extremely high. After the U.S. reported an unprecedented number of new pediatric COVID-19 infections last month, updated data released on Monday shows new cases among children have dropped for the second week in a row. Nearly 632,000 kids tested positive for COVID-19 last week, a huge drop from the peak level of 1,150,000 reported the week ending January the 20th, according to a new report by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital Association. However, the organizations warn that pediatric cases remain extremely high and are still double the level seen in the summer Delta surge. AAP and CHA noted there is an urgent need to collect more age-specific data to assess the severity of illness related to new variants, as well as potential longer-term effects. That's the thing. Never hear any of these right-wing nut jobs mention long COVID. Some doctors are saying that long COVID is going to be like the number one health crisis we face as a nation going forward. Exactly, Dustin. The parachute is working. Quit. Let's cut it off. Now, the courts had actually sided with parents who sued the new governor, Glenn Youngkin, in Virginia, but now the Supreme Court has sided with Glenn Youngkin. So masks will not be required in Virginia.
Whether wearing masks is helping or hurting students. CBS 6 is bringing you three.
Now, see, they're presenting it as a question, but we know empirically, yes, masks help slow the spread. I don't have the data handy right now, but we know for a fact. We can compare schools with mask mandates versus those without. And the schools without had much higher case rates, much higher instances of closure.
360 coverage tonight.
Tyler Lane looks into what happens when doctors begin to disagree on the effectiveness of the mitigation strategies we've been accustomed to. But first, Jake Burns breaks down the latest developments on the legal side of things. Jake?
Well, Bill and Julie, in just 2 business days, 2 different courts have sent down 2 seemingly differing opinions on lawsuits involving Governor Glenn Youngkin's school masking opt-out order. It's important to remember there are multiple challenges to Governor Youngkin's school mask opt-out order. The Supreme Court of Virginia dismissing the one filed by parents of students in Chesapeake, saying the way they filed the suit wasn't the correct procedure. Attorney General Jason Miara is calling the decision a win for Virginia, but the justice has also noted the dismissal is not an opinion on whether or not the initial order was legal. In a separate case brought by 7 school districts, including Richmond, an Arlington judge ruled Youngkin overstepped his authority.
Here's where we are right now. If your school board wants to adopt a mask mandate, the guidance we have so far is that is completely lawful and they're allowed to do that. If your school board wants to go mask optional, we still don't know quite whether or not that is permissible. This opinion suggests that there's a good chance it's permissible, but doesn't conclusively resolve that.
Projecting their problems onto their kids. They're projecting their right-wing propaganda that they consume onto their kids.
Rachel Kulak says her son was given a mask, even though she sent him to school in Henrico without one Monday. She disagrees with the district's universal masking policy and says her family is watching the legal cases play out.
I think the biggest problem is that these children and these families feel bullied and intimidated. Nobody wants their child to get suspended or have their grades go down. My son's grades have certainly gone down from now.
Nobody should want their child to get COVID.
But I would really like to not be in this constant give and take, push and shove.
Lindsay Doherty has 2 kids in Chesterfield schools where masks are now optional. She says the majority of health experts agree masks help slow the spread of COVID. And since her son has a disability, she compares optional masking to making seatbelts optional in cars.
This practice of masking is very similar to that.
Very good analogy.
Not everyone is going to die if they contract COVID, but it is an extra level of protection for me, my children, and all of my community.
Much of the legal wrangling around Youngkin's order centers on a state law passed last year requiring schools to open during the pandemic and closely follow CDC guidance. But that law expires in August. So UR law professor Jack Price says any legal decisions now might have a short shelf life.
Come the fall, if there's still a reason to use masks, it's going to be up to each school district because I don't think we're going to see new legislation. And at that point, the governor may have the ability, depending on the type of executive order he issues.
IDOT, welcome. Thank you for being a freaking follower.
The view behind you, Zach, it is pretty
Fuck Youngkin. Now, they were talking about the disparity between different doctors. Let's show you one of these whack job doctors that has been making predictions all through the pandemic and that went on with Mehdi Hassan a few days ago to apologize for all the bullshit.
Predicting an end to the pandemic, but were they right to? Here with me now is someone you may know from cable news, from NPR, from her Washington Post op-eds, Dr. Monica Gandhi, a professor of medicine at the University of California, San Francisco, where she also serves as the director of the UCSF Center for AIDS Research and helps lead the division on HIV and infectious diseases at San Francisco General Hospital. Dr. Gandhi, thanks so much for coming on the show this evening. Is it fair to say that there is a growing divide between doctors and scientists who want to keep mitigation measures in place, mask mandates, social distancing and the like, and those who think we're nowhere near the end of this pandemic, and doctors and scientists like yourself maybe who are much more optimistic and relaxed even about the present and future of COVID because of the vaccines?
Yes, I mean, I think this is a point in the pandemic where people are calling for metrics or what are called off-ramps for restrictions. And I've been calling for that for some time based on hospitalization rates, based on vaccination rates.
You've been saying bullshit for some time.
I wrote a piece in the Washington Post with Ashish John, others about those being the two metrics, your immunity and hospitalization rates that can tell us when we can lift restrictions.
So timing is an issue here in this debate, of course. We all want to see an end to the pandemic and restrictions. Does it make sense to be...
Now, she is in California where there are actually, there's an indoor mask mandate.
Mask mandates and, quote, as you put it, going back to living the way we used to, when more than 2,000 Americans are still dying every day, sometimes more than 3,000. Some might say that's kind of offensive to the family.
I believe 2,600 died yesterday.
I think if you do not prepare...
Cases have dropped for like the last 2 or 3 weeks, but deaths are a lagging indicator. We're still going to see like 2,500 deaths a day for another week or two.
People for the fact that this virus will be endemic, you're actually doing a great disservice. And what I mean by prepare is that Europe and the UK have had more realistic commentary about what will it take? What is the right number of hospitalizations you can expect with COVID that would allow you to go back to normal? I think it's actually very unrealistic and been unfair to think we can eradicate COVID by our behavior. I think that's actually been the problem with the debate.
Oh, no.
For 2 years. We can't eradicate it, not because we're not good enough. Not because we haven't been as humans masked enough or kept things closed enough, but because
bullshit. Bullshit. There's the death rate compared to other countries. This is relatively recent. This was on January the 25th of this year. Our death rate versus other countries.
Because of the properties of the virus, which are animal reservoirs, pre-symptomatic transmission, non-sterilizing immunity increasingly from the vaccines, and the fact that the virus looks like other pathogens. And preparing people for the endemicity phase of the pandemic is the right approach. In fact, I think it's wrong to think that you could eradicate it. I think that's...
But isn't that...
We could have!
Isn't that a little bit of a straw man? Because most people are not saying eradicate it or zero deaths. They're saying a 9/11 every day is bad. It's not a time to be talking about...
Oh, IDOT. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to break it out, aren't I? Oh, you're one of those that doesn't realize. You're probably referring to the protests the summer of 2020. Feds say far-right group coordinated attack on Minneapolis police precinct during protest. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Minnesota announced that the FBI brought charges against the members of the far-right Boogaloo Boys for organizing and participating in an effort to incite a riot outside the Minneapolis police precinct in May amid protests against the police killing of George Floyd. And I hate to tell you, that's the same story all over this country. Look at the so-called riots. It was a far-right, racist white people group that was behind it. Every instance. I don't want to say every instance, but most instances. This being, top of it, the Minneapolis Police Department. Anytime I hear, a right-winger say, BLM burned down cities, I'm like, well, what city? Minneapolis. Portland. The Hill is a center-of-the-road publication. Oh, the Hill. I get my information from Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro. I'm not going to believe anything that comes from the Hill. Hook yuck. Right in the center, least biased. Overall, we rate the Hill least biased based on balanced editorial positions and news reporting that is low biased. Also, rate them mostly factual in reporting. He's Dad, you're an idiot.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Yes. He's Dad doesn't understand the left and right spectrum at all. Why? Because right-wingers are morons. And Dr. Gandhi here is one of the people that right-wingers keep having on, and we're going to see exactly where she's having to backtrack for her statements.
Normalization. Over 3,000 dead yesterday.
Yeah, so I think it's fair to say this. You need hospitalization metrics for when you can live with it in a respiratory pathogen. And I think, again, wrote about that in April and then in the New York Times in a couple of months ago. So what's that hospitalization metric? You're right. In many areas, we're nowhere near that. In the state of California, we're very much there because we have such high levels of vaccination. California, 40 million people. Our state looks like Denmark in terms of 81% vaccination rate. So I think it may depend on where you live in the country. We're almost restricting the vaccinated and restricting highly vaccinated places to make up for the fact that Americans did not get vaccinated the rate we want.
What exactly are we restricting?
50 different places.
I think we can agree on the failure on the vaccination front. You have consistently said that COVID isn't that big a risk to kids, that the risk isn't big enough to justify some of the restrictions we see in schools.
Over 850 kids have died.
Physician-in-chief at Children's Hospital New Orleans said to me last summer during the Delta surge about whether kids are low risk.
Well, that was a myth from the beginning, but it's particularly not true now. This Delta variant of COVID-19 has been a game changer. We are seeing many ill children. The prevalence rate of COVID among our outpatients coming to clinic has increased from 1% 1 month ago to 7% and now to about 20%. And we have 18 children in the hospital today, 6 in the intensive care unit with a diagnosis of COVID-19.
What is your response to Dr. Klein, who is one of the nation's top pediatricians?
Yes, I completely agree that children can get COVID, but talking about risk stratification, that children are much less at risk, which actually for 2 biological reasons. One is
850 children have died.
Not able to imbibe the virus as well. And the second has to do with their innate immune response. Talking about risk stratification, that older people are much more at risk of COVID than younger people is valid. It's an epidemiologic valid statement. And in fact, other countries had longer periods of their schools being open because they acknowledged this risk stratification. So you had to keep children safe, you have to keep adults safe, but in any field of infectious disease, you keep those who are most at risk for an infection more safe than those who are less at risk. I don't think that's unreasonable,
Dr. Gandhi, one of the big criticisms of you is that you make these sweeping and very optimistic predictions, and they just don't pan out. I just want to run through some of them tonight so you can respond. Bear with me. I'll read them out, and then I'll have you respond. You said last February, a month before India's horrific second wave began, killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, quote, India now has herd immunity. Last March, pre-Delta and Omicron here in the US, you said, I genuinely, with all my heart, apologize for anyone who continues to try to scare you about variants. In May, you gave not 1, but 7 reasons why we won't need boosters. Also in May, you said by June 15th, California, your state, would get to herd immunity. In June itself, you said not to have doom about Delta. In July, you said what we know about the Delta variant is reassuring. You said in September, I truly think we are in the end game. By mid-October, we will be in a manageable place. And you said in December, Omicron won't swamp hospitals in vaccinated areas. It did. At what point, Dr. Gandhi, do you say, maybe I should stop making predictions about a pandemic?
Maybe you should shut the fuck up.
Yes, I think that you are not in my region in California. So I live in a highly vaccinated and highly immune region. I'm working in the hospital now. That's why I'm wearing this. And no, our hospitals were not swamped because of are higher.
No default authority.
In a region that had high levels of vaccination. That was actually true with the Delta variant as well, because we had about a 78% vaccination rate prior to Delta, so we were able to manage our hospitalizations. So it could be the difference between a highly vaccinated place and a lower vaccinated place and 50 different countries.
Exactly. And it is being platformed by right-wing propaganda.
Multiple times in a public
This is one of the main doctors they cite, other than Malone and McCullough.
Things wrong. I think your critics say you've got a lot of things wrong, and I appreciate humility is the right way with a disease that's made a lot of people wrong over the last year or two. But the problem is your critics say you made all these predictions on herd immunity, on Omicron, on variants, and then you said last month again, I think this will be the last wave for a while. If you're humble, if you know you got things, why not stop making these sweeping predictions? We don't know if it's the last wave for a while. You can't say that. And why would people believe you when you were wrong before?
Yeah, I guess it depends on, I apologize. I will try not to make any more predictions. Thank you.
And one last question. Isn't the problem, and look, optimism is a good thing. We all
2 years into this, you'll finally stop making predictions.
Say it's not just optimism in a pandemic where thousands of people are dying. There's a flippancy as well when it comes to some of these predictions. I just want to play this clip from a podcast you were on last year when you were asked about variants. Have a listen.
Even with variants, if they're going to be setting against, because the variants are the new bugaboo, right? Like, we always knew there was mutations. That's what coronaviruses do. All viruses do that. But the thing is, if the vaccines are effective against severe disease, which they are, even against the Brazilian variant.
Yes. I really need to say something. I need to say variant schmariants. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Wow.
How many people have died at the hands of the Delta and Omicron variants? Do you regret saying that?
I regret saying yes. I regret saying that. But I will tell you that, again, in highly vaccinated places like my own, the Delta variant did not swamp hospitals because of what's called T-cell immunity. It's what's called our immunity and our protection from severe disease. So we had very high cases but low hospitalizations in places from the Delta variant.
So we don't have an IDOT 14 in the chat. We have an idiot 14.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Take your white supremacist nonsense somewhere else, or somebody will indeed ban you, because we know what the 3 parentheses means.
But I'm lucky because I live in a highly...
That wasn't a pun, by the way. I don't think you know what a pun is.
We took the vaccines. So I live in San Francisco and know our hospitals were not...
Big fan of Mehdi Hassan. Always have been.
Giggling about variants, which have now killed so many people. It's more that, looking back on it now.
I think it's really... Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I will not do that again. I really think it's terribly important to understand the immune system and how well protected you are.
Do you understand the immune system, ma'am?
Because of the in-breath robust response across the spike protein, even from spike protein vaccines. I think it's so important to understand that. But I don't think I can explain it on this program.
We certainly...
Eddie would give you the time.
Dr. Monica Gandhi, I appreciate you coming on the show and taking my questions. Thank you so much.
At least she's willing to admit that she made a mistake. And what she said flies in the face of what Dr. Osterholm said at the beginning of the pandemic. I just happened to put this video together of Joe Rogan. The first clip, he's talking to, I don't even know who the dude is, but it's not any kind of medical expert. But in the second clip, he is talking to Dr. Osterholm, and it's at the beginning of the pandemic. Notice what Dr. Osterholm says.
And you say to me, should I get vaccinated? I go, no. Yeah. Are you healthy? Are you a healthy person? Like, look, don't do anything stupid, but you should take care of yourself. You should, if you're a healthy person and you're exercising all the time and you're young and you're...
I titled this video Joe Rogan versus Joe Rogan on vaccines.
Don't worry about this.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
But there's a lot of jobs that will tell you you need to have this.
Well, that's what's starting to happen now.
People are worried about them doing it for their children. And we talked about this earlier. There's that you might have to have your children vaccinated. And, I can tell you as someone who's both my children got the
Remember what he said about children here in just a second.
I mean, I hate to say that. If someone's children died from this, I'm very sorry that happened.
Over 850
I'm not
have.
in any way diminishing that. But I'm saying the
Yeah, you
personal
are.
experience that my children had with COVID was nothing.
We need to just have straight talk. Don't tell them it's low risk. It's like the hurricane, okay? You know, I would be really mad at you if I thought you were a...
March of 2020.
You knew this was
March of 2020. This is Dr. Osterholm.
coming, but you kept telling me, oh, it's low risk. Don't worry about it.
Right. Yeah, once it hit.
Yeah, so that's what we need to do today is just say this is going to be challenging. And we're going to get through it, though. We are going to get through it.
I hope this wakes people up to the value of vaccines, too. There's so many wackos out there that think that vaccines are, a scam or they're dangerous or there's so many people out there that won't vaccinate their children.
I know. And that's one of your best shows you ever did was Peter Hotez.
Yes,
he's a
I
dear
love
friend of
that
mine.
guy.
I do too. He's a dear friend of mine, as you. And, he is one of the champions out there on this very issue.
Yes.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's really an important point that, we got to get this idea. These vaccines can be life-saving. If we had one right now, think how different this situation would be in we're in right now. Thank you for what you do say about vaccines because people listen to you and we need every positive voice because we have so many crazy voices out there right now
So
that
many
are
people are paranoid and delusional, and they want it all to be a conspiracy. There's been an amazing medical innovation in human culture, and that's vaccines.
He was interviewing Dr. Osterholm, one of the leading epidemiologists in the country. And clearly understood. All these right-wingers are just grifters. Here's Ben Shapiro. This is from 2015. Spent the day watching my fully vaccinated 13-month-old cough until blue with pertussis because others didn't get vaccinated. Thanks, dolts. But now this anti-vaccine stance is bringing in Ben Shapiro a lot of fucking money. So I make you a promise that I will never follow clicks and likes. I will tell people in my chat to fuck themselves. I am only here to do the show that I want to do, which is being factual and providing information to people. Don't ever trust me on anything. Verify the shit that I say and call me out if I say something that's incorrect. Well, the problem is... No, Professor, that was from 2015. Ben Shapiro knows how vaccination works, but is now grifting. Just like Joe Rogan understood vaccination in 2020, but is now grifting. And that's the problem, is that people do get their information from Joe Rogan. People that tune in to hear him shoot the shit and get high and talk about DMT with comedians and other celebrities, now they see him having a doctor on and he's not informed. How am I shilling for Big Pharma? My stance on this show from the very beginning in my life has been that pharmaceutical companies shouldn't exist. My feelings on the vaccination are that they should be open source. The intellectual property should belong to everybody. So calling me a shill for Big Pharma is just fucking stupid. But what do we expect from right-wingers? They're fucking morons. And oh my God, he pulled out the commie card. I filed my taxes the other day. Do you know what I filed my taxes as? A small business owner. If you clock in, if you have a boss, guess who is far more capitalistic than you are? Me. I'm an actual capitalist, not a commie. Unless you own your own business, you are not a capitalist. Weird. I get called commie by people that I'm more capitalist than. But here's the thing. I can define communism. I can define socialism. I can define capitalism. Unlike stupid-ass right-wingers.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
Oh, shit. We're going to come back to Joe Rogan in just a little bit, though. Because, of course, we are. Federal hate crimes trial is set to begin for Ahmaud Arbery's convicted killers. Published earlier today. I believe the trial or the jury selection began today. Jury selection is scheduled to begin Monday in the federal hate crimes trial of the 3 Georgia men charged in connection with the death of Ahmaud Arbery, a black jogger whose 2020 shooting fueled protests and calls for racial justice. The Department of Justice has charged Travis McMichael, his father Greg McMichael, and their neighbor William Roddy Bryan with hate crimes and attempted kidnapping of the 25-year-old. All 3 defendants are white, while Arbery was black. The federal proceeding is set to begin 1 month after the 3 men were sentenced to life in prison in a separate murder trial in Georgia State Court. A jury there found the trio guilty of felony murder and other charges in connection with Arbery's death. The federal trial focuses on whether the killing was racially motivated and whether the defendants violated Arbery's civil rights. The state case did not address whether race was a factor. Now, the 2 McMichaels had indeed pled guilty but have withdrawn their guilty plea. They thought that they were going to get to spend time in federal prison as opposed to state prison. The family of Arbery petitioned the court to allow them to serve their sentence in a state facility. That is why they withdrew their guilty plea. Former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, who used to lead the Civil Rights Division at the Justice Department, says that historically federal prosecutions like this were a backstop, a way to seek justice if a state or local prosecutor did not go after such crimes. Today, though, he says it's more about taking a national stand against racist behavior. Most egregious examples, even if there has been a conviction in a state court, there's a national interest in there being federal consequences. And I think this is one of those cases. 2 years ago, Georgia did not have a state hate crimes law that would have applied here. The public outcry over Arbery's murder changed that. Brunswick say it will be hard to rehash the tragedy in court again, but believe it has the potential to move the country forward in terms of racial justice. I'll be so glad when they get to the end of this. How much longer? I'm certain that the family feels that way. I'm certain that our community feels that way. At the same time, it's something that is being used to produce better. According to Pastor John Perry of Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church, Perry's part of a group of clergy who plan to have a presence at the federal courthouse in support of Arbery's family. Travis and Greg McMichael were planning to plead guilty to the federal charges, but they withdrew their pleas after U.S. District Judge Lisa Godby Wood rejected the plea agreement presented by prosecutors because of objections from Arbery's family. The Justice Department takes seriously its obligation to confer with the Arbery family and their lawyers, both pursuant to the Crime Victim Rights Act and out of respect for the victim. This is according to Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark. For signing the proposed agreement reflecting the defendant's confessions to federal hate crime charges, the Civil Rights Division consulted with the victims' attorneys. The Justice Department entered the plea agreement only after the victims' attorneys informed me that the family was not opposed to it. Moving on to Minnesota, where apparently the judge in the Derek Chauvin trial was the one who signed the no-knock warrant for Amir Locke. The body camera footage was released on Friday. I'm not going to play the footage. We're probably going to see it in this piece right here.
Was suspended using most no-knock warrants while national experts review the city's policy. Locke was killed Wednesday as a SWAT team served a search warrant in a downtown Minneapolis apartment. Body camera video released last night shows officers using a key to enter the apartment, loudly identifying themselves and kicking a sofa where Locke was under a blanket. A gun can be seen in Locke's hand and police fire.
Now what you're seeing is slowed down footage. The whole thing happened in about 9 seconds.
3 shots. The city's interim police chief has acknowledged that Locke was not named in the search warrant. Locke's family spoke today.
I believe that he was executed by the MPD, and I want the police officer that murdered my son to be prosecuted and fired.
The chair of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus said Amir Locke, a lawful gun owner, should still be alive, adding black men, like all citizens, have a right to keep and bear arms. Governor Tim Walsh says that Minnesota made strides last year, passing statewide restrictions on the use of no-knock warrants, but the events leading to the death of Amir Locke illustrate the need for further reform.
CBS.
The fuck are you? This is what you mean about blacks? What? That they get executed when they were innocent? What a dumb fuck statement, idiot. Pictures of the hallway. Pictures of the blocked hallway door in the Minneapolis apartment building where police shot and killed a man today. PD says it was serving a warrant, and 9 seconds after entering the apartment, officers came across a man holding a gun and one of them fired. What do you mean citation needed? You just heard the cops say he wasn't the one that was in the warrant. He was a legal gun owner. Guess what the Supreme Court has ruled? If the cops break into your house and they don't announce themselves, you can fucking shoot at them. Fire incident report revealed that Locke arrived at the hospital with 2 gunshot wounds to his chest and one in his wrist. One of the wounds in his chest had a compress applied. Emergency medics determined that he did not have a pulse when he was assessed at the hospital. He was pronounced deceased. Police say a handgun was recovered from the apartment loaded with 5mm rounds. Shortly following the shooting, police released a couple of images of the handgun they say was held by Locke. It wouldn't have mattered if he had pointed the gun at police. He had every right to do that. Now, as I've said many times on this show, the cops will release the footage immediately if they think it proves them to be in the right. I assume that's what happened. Though it says the city of Minneapolis released a segment of the body cam footage. Footage initially released on the city's YouTube page is less than a minute long. It shows the same video or parts of it at various speeds. First, it's in slow motion, showing police unlocking a door and entering an apartment. Several officers can be heard yelling police and search warrant as they step through the doorway with guns drawn. The officers approach a couch on which Locke is wrapped in a blanket. He sits up and turns towards the officers. He's holding a gun. An instant later, an officer fires 3 shots and Locke falls to the floor. The shooting is replayed in super slow motion. The entire video plays again in real time. In total, Locke is shot roughly 10 seconds after officers open the apartment door. Now, I've actually read the Constitution, and in my interpretation of the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, it is a cop's duty to die if necessary to bring somebody in. In the fatal police shooting of, we're going to skip on. Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office on Friday released a report on Locke's death, saying he died of multiple gunshot wounds. The examiner classified Locke's death as a homicide, though noted the manner of death is not a legal determination of culpability or intent. Locke was 22. He was shot at 6:48 a.m. at the Bolero Flats Apartments. Died minutes later. Tell WCCO-TV that Minneapolis police would not serve the search warrant that ended in the death of Amir Locke unless it was a no-knock warrant. St. Paul police originally asked for a knock and announce warrant, but only went back to get the no-knock warrant after the Minneapolis police, which how many times are we going to have to report on the Minneapolis police killing an innocent person, said that they would not serve the first one. Boy, do we have a bootlicker in the chat. He was indeed holding it in the shot. He's holding the gun. On Friday, St. Paul police also confirmed that the search warrants in the incident were signed by a Hennepin County judge and will remain sealed until a court determines otherwise, as is standard practice in homicide investigations and per Minnesota law. Two WCCO sources later confirmed that it was Peter Cahill, the judge who presided over the Derek Chauvin trial, who signed off on the no-knock search warrant. Released Friday, however, was the search warrant requested by the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension following the fatal shooting. And hey, I don't give a shit what they were serving a warrant on. It's probably drugs. There is no crime that is more egregious than what the cops did that day. Shows what evidence the BCA requested and obtained inside the downtown apartment as part of the BCA's investigation into the shooting. Among the property and items requested were forensics evidence, trace or microscopic evidence, permission to fully document the scene, clothing, firearms, ammunition, and more. According to the BCA, Minneapolis police officers were assisting St. Paul police with the execution of a search warrant at the Bolero Flats apartment building. The search warrant that brought officers to the apartment has yet to be released. WCCO will update when it is released. Police have said the search warrants were in connection to a homicide in St. Paul. I was wrong about it being drugs. Connection to a homicide. Huffman said both a knock and no-knock warrant were obtained so that the SWAT team could make its best assessment. Attorney Ben Crump, mentioned below, has said that St. Paul police did not request a no-knock warrant and Minneapolis police insisted on one. On Friday, the mayor, Jacob Frey, imposed a moratorium on both the request and execution of no-knock warrants, which I don't even understand hasn't been outlawed federally. No matter what information comes to light, it won't change the fact that Amir Locke's life was cut short, Frey said in a statement. To ensure the safety of both the public and officers until a new policy is crafted, I'm issuing a moratorium on both the request and execution of such search warrants in Minneapolis. He also said the leadership of the Minneapolis Police Department will work with national experts DeRay McCarson and Dr. Pete Kraska of Eastern Kentucky University to review and suggest revisions to the department's policy of no-knock warrants. Important to note that no-knock warrants are still possible if there's an imminent threat of harm to an individual or public. Certainly seems like the imminent threat of harm coming from the cops. Locke's mother, Karen Michelle Wells, and his father, Andrew Locke, spoke in a virtual press conference alongside attorney Ben Crump on Friday morning. Crump also represented George Floyd following his May 2020 murder at the hands of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. The Floyd family was currently serving a 2-decade sentence in Floyd's death. Crump also represented Dante Wright's family. Wright was shot and killed by Brooklyn Center police officer Kim Potter, who was convicted of manslaughter. Exactly, Ida. The only function cops serve is protecting capital. And we know that the number one type of theft in this country is wage theft. Which, hey, isn't a criminal offense. Hey, idiot, don't call somebody a brain-dead Marxian. I doubt you've ever read Marx and know nothing about Marxist analysis. What a fucking idiot. Yes. I'm a capitalist. You're not. More than likely, you clock in and you have a boss that tells you what to do. I don't. Because I own my own means of production. I get called commie. People that I'm far more capitalistic than all the time. And it's hilarious. But right-wingers are fucking morons, so what do you expect? Study has found that 19% of Spotify users have unsubscribed or plan to following the Joe Rogan backlash. Additional 18.5% said they might cancel if more music is removed from the platform. As a refresher, Rogan, whose Joe Rogan Experience is the most streamed Spotify exclusive podcast, has become a hotbed of misinformation about COVID-19, among other nonsense. Spotify CEO Daniel Ek has doubled down on his decision to keep ties with Rogan, prompting Neil Young and other artists to take their music off the platform in protest. Despite the debate, Forrester's study also found that 54% of current Spotify users had no intention of canceling their subscription, while 18.5% said they might cancel if more of their favorite artists also pulled their music from the platform. Remove Taylor Swift and BTS. That's the thing, is a lot of artists don't own their masters and can't pull their music from Spotify. I figured Neil Young owned his, and apparently he didn't, and had to go to Warner Brothers Music to get them to pull his music. Now, I had speculated that Taylor Swift bought her masters, and that's why she was able to re-record them. That's not true. She re-recorded her songs because she doesn't own her masters. She wouldn't be able to pull all her old stuff off of Spotify. She would only be able to pull what she owns the rights to. About 8.5% of those surveyed said they considered switching music streaming services, but they thought Spotify's features were too good to pass up. Of course, this report should be taken with a grain of salt. Another Forrester study in September 2021 found that only 32% of U.S. adults said they would actually follow through with boycotting a brand, so it's tough to say how much of a hit Spotify will actually take. They did lose about $1 billion in their evaluation, but it's bounced back. Hey, idiot! You've been slinging ad hominems all over the place. When you were talking about The Hill being a left-wing rag or whatever the fuck you said, that was you attacking the source to discredit it, as opposed to actually dealing with what it said. Don't come in here fucking throwing around fallacies like you know what they mean. Right-wingers are morons. When I say right-wingers are morons, that is not an ad hominem. If I prove that right-wingers are morons and then call them morons, that is not an ad hominem. An ad hominem is a very specific instance where you use an insult or a derogatory term as supporting evidence. Like, Keith's dad is wrong because Keith's dad is an idiot. I use Keith's dad as an idiot as supporting evidence. That's an ad hominem. Fucking idiots are constantly using the word ad hominem wrong. People are stupid.
Do you think we're stupid? You think we're fools?
You don't have a master's in philosophy. What a fucking idiot. Now, before we do this next section, I have to grapple with my own use of the N-word. I am on audio and video using the word numerous times. I made a meme out of it so you guys can understand exactly what I said so I don't actually have to say it on the show. Confederate monuments are nothing but a giant sign that says N-word, don't forget who is in charge here. I stopped using the word because every time genuine actors would use my use of the word as a way to dismiss me. If we're having a conversation about my use of the word and not the point I was making, that's bad communication. And as a communication specialist, I recognize that. Also, I was a huge Louis C.K. fan. I tried to do subversive comedy. I stand by any of the instances that people will be able to pull up of me using the N-word. I do not encourage its use anymore, and I personally do not use it anymore. Just because it becomes an argument about my use of the word. So that is why I have stopped you. I've even used it here on the Troll Patrol. I'm sure there are clips floating around of that. Also, apparently I've been called a racist by this stalker. We brought this up on the Freak Show the other night. It is for the best. It's for the best not to employ the word, no matter what your intention is. I've come to that conclusion. But I've got this stalker who apparently watches all my shit, even though they think it's bad content. They were apparently watching the Freak Show, and the full episode, it's not in one of the clips that I used, I don't think. He commented on the full episode. I think he deleted it. I would have commented back, because he keeps getting my joke wrong. Charles commented, the punchline of the joke was that you couldn't tell Asian people apart. You shouldn't lie, just don't bring it up. It's sad that you have to lie to people about your old content. That was not the joke. The punchline of the joke he is referring to is I can't tell two Icelandic men apart. But I like confronting shit head on, so I'm going to keep bringing it up as Charles butchers my fucking joke. The thing is, I can't recognize fucking anybody. And the setup to the joke was like I went to the grocery store and I would get a lot of weird looks from Asian people, and I didn't know if it was because I knew them from class, because I went to school with hundreds of Asian people, because I went to a large university, 12,000, 15,000 people, something like that. And I didn't know if I knew them from class, or that if they found my Fu Manchu offensive. Like, now, I'm not saying all Asians look alike. No. Just 67% of them. But 67% of any race looks alike. 67% of white people look alike. I cannot tell two Icelandic men apart. That was the joke. That was from back in 2013, 2014. I don't know if I would still do the joke today. But I don't appreciate Charles butchering my joke, trying to say that my punchline was that I can't tell Asian people apart. Because that's not at all what I said. But I mean, these are bad faith actors that, you know, are also morons. So now let's get to Joe Rogan, who is now apologizing for his use of the N-word, I guess. Let's watch the original video first. It's in this TMZ article. Spotify calls comments incredibly hurtful, but Rogan stays put. I believe it was India Ari that put together this this montage of Rogan saying the N-word.
You know, the nigger thing.
Yes. Saying the word nigger.
You've already said nigger.
D is just like nigger. Saying nigger.
She's calling you a nigger. It's like this
boy that he's a nigger and starts calling them niggers. Word nigger.
Oh, Professor, I don't ban people. I figured somebody in the chat would have already banned them. I believe in free speech. But people in my chat, it's their community, and we want to foster a welcoming community.
There should be a word like nigger, especially like the word nigger. That's our nigger. About niggers. He says nigger. Guy, a nigger. And there are niggers. Start saying nigger. Allowed to use the word nigger. Out the word nigger. See nigger. Word nigger. Say nigger, and he couldn't say nigger. And what's nigger? Nigger.
Wow. Let's hear Rogan. I believe he talks about context in this video. This is the first time I've watched the whole thing, though. Pretty damning.
I'm making this video to talk about the most regretful and shameful thing that I've ever had to talk about publicly. There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks fucking horrible, even to me. Now, I know that to most people, there's no context where a white person is ever allowed to say that word, never mind publicly on a podcast. And I agree with that now. I haven't said...
Oh, you got to tell me I got to show a cat. I got to go find a cat. Here's a Smokey. Come say hey. Calling me a cuck. What a stupid. Maybe he's calling Joe Rogan a cuck. Who knows? He's a cuck for that money.
Said it in years, but for a long time, when I would bring that word up, like if it would come up in conversation, instead of saying the N-word, I would just say the word. I thought as long as it was in context, people would understand what I was doing. Like that context was part of the clip we were talking about Red Fox, how Red Fox said that word on television in the 1970s, and how times have changed so much since then. Or about how Richard Pryor used it as one of the titles of one of his albums. Or I was quoting a Lenny Bruce bit, or I was
But it's so weird to bring up Richard Pryor when Richard Pryor denounced his use of the word himself and said that he would never use it again.
Quoting a Paul Mooney bit, or I was talking about how Quentin Tarantino used it repeatedly in Pulp Fiction, or I was talking about how a Netflix executive, ironically, used it because he was trying to compare it to another offensive word, and he said it out loud, and they fired him. Not calling anybody, or just saying the word out loud. I was also talking about how there's
stealing valor from Red Fox and Richard Pryor, and that's it. You know, it would be one thing if there's not a whole fucking explanation of Richard Pryor saying why he wouldn't use the word anymore. That's my point. I highly recommend. There is actually a documentary. It's probably 15, 20 years old now. It's called The N-Word. And it has that clip of Richard Pryor in it.
Because it's a word where only one group of people is allowed to use it, and they can use it in so many different ways. Like if a white person says that word, it's racist.
So they can reclaim it.
But a black person can use it, and it could be a punchline. It could be a term of endearment. It could be lyrics to a rap song. It could be a positive affirmation. It's a very unusual word, but it's not my word to use. I'm well aware of that now, but for years I used it in that manner. I never used it to be racist because I'm not racist, but whenever you're in a situation where you have to say, I'm not racist.
I believe that he's not racist.
And I clearly have fucked up. And that's my intention to express myself in this video. To say, there's nothing I can do to take that back. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment. Because I never thought it would ever be taken out of context and put in a video like that. And now that it is, holy shit, it looks bad. And it's part of also me doing this podcast for thousands of hours, thousands of episodes over 12 years. I said a lot of fucking stupid shit, which is fine when you're talking about most things, but not when you're talking about race. And there's another clip that I have to address. There's a clip from 11 years ago. I was telling a story on the podcast about how me and my friend Tommy and his girlfriend, we got really high. We were in Philadelphia, and we went to go see Planet of the Apes. And we didn't know where we were going. We just got dropped off by a cab, and we got dropped off in this all-black neighborhood. And I was trying to make the story entertaining, and I said we got out, and it was like we were in Africa. It's like we were in Planet of the Apes. I did not.
Whoa, what?
That black people are apes, but it sure fucking sounded.
Then what's the joke then? I hadn't heard. Okay, maybe. Whoa. Oof, indeed. Maybe I need to back off that. I believe that he's not racist. What? What did you mean if that, what? Yeah, I had not heard that yet. Oof.
Like that. And I immediately afterwards said, that's a racist thing to say. Planet of the Apes wasn't even in Africa. I was just saying there's a lot of black.
It was Earth, wasn't it? Like it was in like New York City.
What a positive experience it was and how much fun it was to go to see this movie in a black neighborhood. It wasn't a racist story, but it sounded terrible. And like I said, you can have clunky stories about anything, but not about race. And so I deleted that whole podcast, but obviously somebody made a clip out of it and taken out of context. It looks terrible, but it looks terrible even in context. It's a fucking idiotic thing to say, and I was just trying to be entertaining. I certainly wasn't trying to be racist, and I certainly would never want to offend someone for entertainment with something as stupid as racism. My hope is that, look, I can't go back in time and change what I've said. I wish I could. Obviously, that's not possible. But I do hope that this can be a teachable moment for anybody that doesn't realize how offensive that word can be coming out of a white person's mouth in context.
The context didn't make it any better. Fuck.
And humble apologies. I wish there was more that I could say, but all of this is just me talking from the bottom of my heart. It makes me sick watching that video, but hopefully at least some of you will accept this and understand where I'm coming from. My apologies and much love. My sincere, deepest apologies and much.
I don't if it wasn't a joke about racism, what was it a joke about? That just doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Oh shit. That makes me think less of him. I mean, as you guys know, I've I don't want to say defended, I've criticized him for not knowing what he's talking about when it comes to COVID. I think it would be a better show if he was more informed on his podcast. But like, goddamn. And let's face facts here. If he wasn't facing pressure from Spotify, and that's another thing. All the people saying he's not corporate media. He's corporate media. He's getting paid way more than anybody that you see on MSNBC or CNN or Fox. And he is being pressured by a corporation to make that apology. It wasn't just him having an epiphany one day. It was him apologizing because of public pressure. Daniel Ek, CEO of Spotify, said, not only are some of Joe Rogan's comments incredibly hurtful, I want to make it clear that they do not represent the values of this company. I know this situation leaves many of you feeling drained, frustrated, and unheard. The value of the company, the values of the company is let's make some fucking money. You want to make some motherfucking money, bitch? Seems like the comments are directed at Rogan using the N-word, the full word, on his podcast, although the COVID controversy may well be a part of it. And then Eck pivots, explaining, while I strongly condemn what Joe has said, and I agree with his decision to remove past episodes from our platform, I realize some will want more. Eck then went on to say, and I want to make one point very clear, I do not believe that silencing Joe is the answer. We should have clear lines around content and take action when they are crossed, but canceling voices is a slippery slope. I am tired of them saying that removing his content is canceling him. Fucking Alex Jones isn't canceled. He's still spouting his nonsense. He just has to pay for the servers to do it now. They just want to make more fucking money. X says his company will invest $100 million for licensing, development, and marketing of music and audio content for historically marginalized groups. Early to tell how this sits with rank and file at Spotify. Oh, Rogan has some self-reflection to do, Lucy. I want to watch that movie. Apparently, it's a train wreck of a movie, the Lucy and Desi movie. But I really like the dude that played Desi Arnaz. I mean, I'm interested in the movie. But hey, you know, there's a lot of fuckers talking about canceling Joe Rogan. A lot of people bringing up, oh, you're trying to cancel Joe Rogan, you know, while books are being banned all across the country. But I don't hear anybody coming at Pastor Greg Locke and saying he's trying to cancel people. This week, Tennessee pastor and pro-Trump conspiracy theorist Greg Locke hosted a book-burning event where attendees tossed Harry Potter and Twilight novels into a huge bonfire. That's so 15 fucking years ago. I wanted to see if they actually had... Yeah. It was live streamed from Locke's fucking Facebook, because of course it was. Get to the book burning here. Here we go. Absolutely, conservatives are hypocrites. I confronted several with, you know, are you standing up for Whoopi Goldberg? Mad at ABC? Of course not. Wait, is it on Amazon or some shit? I don't know what streaming service it's on. Oh! Moxicino. Locke's fucking tent got destroyed in a tornado a month ago? Month and a half ago? What did Locke do? Not raise money for the people who died in the tornado. No. Locke got on his Facebook and immediately started raising money for a new tent. No, we can't hear the deliverance from demons going on. An honest-to-God book burning. I'm sure this makes Jesus happy. Look how gleeful they are. Was it just Harry Potter and Twilight, though? I mean, you could make an argument that they are, throwing turf J.K. Rowling's books to the fire and they're doing a service. But I doubt Locke is doing it because he's against Rowling being a turf.
Okay, I assume.
So this is a dude that decided to crash the book burning.
Excited. Excited, man. Excited, I just can't hide it, man. Trolling, I think I like it.
Yep. Welcome. Idiot just wants to say, like, stupid shit.
Yeah, I was gonna do that. Yeah, it's down there on a projector.
I'm glad we get to hear it here. Idiot's been saying all kinds of idiotic shit, so Dip, if you got your band hammer ready. Hey, idiot, if you want to advertise your stupidity, I don't care.
Burn the Bible! Woo!
Burn the Bible!
Darwin's urging the species in Fahrenheit 451! Woohoo! Praise Satan! Woohoo! Hail Satan!
Hail
Satan! To his strength and power! Woo! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Oh, this is amazing.
And I'm immune to your rebuke! Hail Satan! Hail
I mean, if you're wanting to burn books that are immoral,
Jesus Christ! Are you really?
not going to find a better one than the Bible.
Hey, you got okay, go. Walk it out of my face. Go. In the name of Jesus Christ. Go. This is trying to fucking go. In the name of Jesus Christ. Go right now. Right now.
Yeah, you've got to have huge balls to confront like this. Like, I can't imagine the number of people that are packing in that group. This is Tennessee, remember.
Hail Satan. Woo!
You can carry guns and bars in Tennessee.
Hail Satan! Get out of here! Get out of here! Hail Satan! Out of here! My Lord and Savior! He rules this earth! Hail Satan!
Hail Satan indeed.
Satan! Hail Satan! In the name of Jesus Christ, you can be free. In the name of Jesus Christ, I flee your demons, rebuke you.
You're low. Hey,
you're losers.
Hey, get out of here, buddy.
Get out of here, buddy.
Hey, come back, we'll say
We arrest you in the
Come back, we'll say your
We bind right now. We have to Yep, even your dogs are getting delivered.
Yeah, right. Hey, Chris, you're all insane. Give me a kiss.
Oh, shit.
I used to be a Christian. You want to hear my story? No. I went to a church called Clear Note. It's called Trinity Reformed in Bloomington, Indiana now. I was a faithful husband and father. They stole my 5 children. They are evil and satanic. All of you people are satanic. You are Satan. You are Satan. You are Satan. My father's a minister. You are
Hey, of course I speak the local tongue. I went to college in Tennessee.
Satan. You are Satan.
It's gonna be funny when you all die and there's nothing.
Enjoy the void, your worthless fucking lives. Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
Hail Satan!
Motherfucker!
You don't have to be gay to suck cock. Dick is yummy. Yes, the kiss was awesome. Glad he threw that in there. Yeah, mad props to this dude. In the midst of the book-burning fervor, one counter-protester showed up on the scene and threw a Bible into the fire. The man's partner uploaded the video to YouTube and described their counter-protest in the video's description. Husband and I went to a book burning in Mount Juliet, Tennessee Thursday before joining atheist and pagan counter-protesters across the street, playing Highway to Hell and Harry Potter on a projector. Video of us as my husband throws a Bible in and declared he was saving Darwin's Origin of Species in Fahrenheit 451 as he held them up to the crowd. It took him shouting, "I burned a Bible," several times before they stopped cheering and realized they'd been had. They aggressively threw us out, but we had a chance to discuss them with a kiss before we left. Dick is yummy, and if you're coming in here and you're trying to bash gay people, then more than likely your little pee-pee gets hard when you think about man-on-man sex, and you need to just take it in the butt. You'll feel much better getting out of your repressed state. I assure you. Right-wingers are morons. Here is Zippy. Zippy is a pig on a farm, and he's awfully fucking cute.
Where's the cutest little piglet ever? Hey, baby girl. Where's Zippy? Hi, honey. Hi, girl. You're going all over the farm today, aren't you, baby? You were so brave, just like Biscuit.
Oh shit! This is a multi-animal video.
So much. I
had a ham sandwich before I came onto the show. Sorry, Dip.
Can't you get some love, buddy? Okay, my little jealous Biscuit. Okay.
Probably having a chicken Caesar salad after I get off. Sorry. We got all kinds of pigs and puppies in this video. It wasn't just one pig. But Zippy is awfully fucking cute.
Cutest little piglet ever.
It is the cutest little piglet ever.
Where's Zippy? Hi, honey. Hi, girl.
If you are watching on Twitch, it is Meltdown Monday, and apparently Media Winch already has the Adrian Curry playing.
Just like Biscuit.
Go ahead, light one up, tip one back. It's all right to have a little fun before you hit the sack. I am Justin Freakin. We will see you tomorrow night on the Troll Patrol live.
Can't you get some love?